I've always loved arm wrestling. It was something that I did as a kid at school, at home. It was always a go-to thing. I was an incredibly competitive kid. I always said I wanted to be a professional sports person. I didn't know exactly where I was going to be. I certainly didn't think it was going to be arm wrestling. I loved cricket, I loved tennis, I loved golf, I loved athletics, I loved all sports, and I wanted to be a professional sports person. I just didn't know where it was going to end up. A funny story, one day I came home from school in high school, I think I was about 16 years old, and my mum asked me how was my day, and I said I had the worst day I'd ever had in my life, and that was pretty much because I dropped my first catch in cricket and I'd lost my first ever arm wrestle. I remember it was pretty shattering. Jimmy Coleman was the fellow who did it. Was in the classroom one day, and Jimmy's hand and wrist was stronger than mine. And although we probably had no technique going on at all, there was enough strength from Jimmy that day to give me my first loss. So it turns out it was going to be another decade before I discovered that arm wrestling was even a thing in a professional capacity. But it's safe to say that I always enjoyed arm wrestling, even from me being a kid. I found professional arm wrestling when I was actually 27 years old. I was the owner of a retail supplement store, and a friend of mine now, he was my wholesaler at the time. He'd visit my store once a month to restock the products, and he came in one month and challenged me to an arm wrestle, and naturally my ears pricked up. I wasn't big at the time. I'd just come out of the army and I'd had a back injury, and I think I was only about 70 kilos, so, and not particularly strong. So I lost the arm wrestle to Mason, and straight away the competitive drive in me kicked in, and I basically said to him, "Man, I'm going to beat you next month when you come in, and I'm never going to lose to you again." And naturally he laughed and went on his way, and so the instant he walked out the door, I was onto the internet and looking up arm wrestling techniques, and in that I found the Australian Arm Wrestling Federation, saw who the national champions were, and saw all these international competitions going on, and it instantly blew my mind. I thought, no way, there is this sport out there that I've never discovered. And one really interesting thing about the sport, and probably the reason why I dived into it with absolute tenacity and intent of going all the way, was the fact that I noticed that the average age of the elite level arm wrestlers was a lot older than I expected. The world champions in their 40s, and guys even in their 50s that were still taking titles at an elite level. So that was something that really did change the game for me, and from that day forward I decided to go all in on elite arm wrestling, and yeah, here we are now. But very interestingly, when Mason came back the month after, I beat him, and I'm pretty sure he still can't beat me now, but yeah. When I decided to get into professional arm wrestling, there was something that needed to change. When I was a kid, I tried to pursue the elite level of tennis. I didn't make it. As a junior, reached the rank of 8th in Australia, and was, for all intensive purposes, I was on the path to becoming an elite tennis player, but I lacked the maturity to really make it. I lacked the maturity to understand the process needed to be applied to become elite, and performance anxiety started to get the better of me. When I then came to arm wrestling and discovered that professional arm wrestling was a thing, and decided I want to be a professional arm wrestler, I said to myself, I'm not going to make the same mistake. I'm not going to let performance anxiety get in my way, and I'm going to embrace the process. And so I identified the biggest factor for me, which was the fear of losing. And I said, all right, I need to teach myself to accept losing. So I gave myself a number. I said, look, there might be 1,000 professional losses between me being where I am right now at the beginning of the journey, and me being one of the world's greatest arm wrestlers. And initially I had this goal of being a national champion. There were plenty of people who looked at it and laughed, and you could see me as this brand new guy on the Australian scene, and it was never going to be possible. But I embraced that, and it really gave me a different attitude towards matches. I actually got excited about losing. Strangely enough, I got excited every time I lost in a competition. In my mind, was crossing off and one of those losses on that 1,000 that I've got to achieve. And the Australian Arm Wrestling Federation, very fortunate for me, they actually track your stats very, very accurately every match I've had. So to date, 5.5 years into the sport with the Australian Arm Wrestling Federation, I've had approximately 350 professional starts, and I've lost about 120 of them. So I think it took me about 80 professional losses to get to national champion, which was in the 80 kilo category for the first time. But I've since won a lot more titles. I've gone on and taken out Asia Pacific titles as well. But that process of understanding the performance anxiety and how that really limits my ability was something that I needed to get a handle of, and giving myself permission to lose truly changed everything for me in the sport. So just about to head off to a Wednesday night training session with the Brisbane Heavy Hitters Club. I truly feel like it's such a blessing to have an awesome club like this. There's at least 4 or 5 guys in there that are chasing the world elite level, and then we've got about 40 guys that are just solid as and give us plenty of value for training. So it makes a massive difference. I feel like training with a big crew like that makes a massive difference. I'm someone who's a big fan of and a believer of table time being the most valuable form of training specific to arm wrestling. So I love being able to get quality table time each and every week. It really is something that I feel sets us apart as a club. No thanks. You guys even doing anything?
As always, mate, the action's in the underhand.
What's that, Mickey? I gotta go to the main event. I'm just going to the main event. At least these guys arm wrestle. These guys just hold hands over here.
Yours still doesn't go though. He's too damn tall. I'm hooking, that's why I'm not top rolling.
Stop climbing around, you're losing purchase. Go out, go back. There we go.
The Michael C. You have to get free. Have to grip really low. Have to grip low to do that. If you try to grip high then, out of straps will just go low and keeping this.
In the Brisbane Heavy Hitter Club, there's a lot of guys that are genuinely quite elite. One of them, particularly Jordan Davis, he is probably the guy that knows my game best. We spent 3.5 years training essentially 6 days a week, table time, and this guy knows so much about my angles, it's ridiculous. And he is definitely the arm wrestler that is the most difficult for me to beat out of everyone. His setups, his hit, his angles just really are difficult to deal with, and I've got a lot of respect for him as an arm wrestler. I think he's going to go a long way.
I'm like, top roll up, Dan, I should have looked
Without a doubt, though, the most decorated arm wrestler within the Brisbane Heavy Hitters Club, and probably within the Australian Arm Wrestling Federation as a whole, is Danny Tesh. This man, he's like diesel strong. It's quite difficult to really grasp how strong this guy is. He's not fast, he's not explosive, but I've never seen this guy lose a match if he stops it. He's only ever lost in hits. His lactic acid tolerance is just phenomenal. But Danny Tesh is ranked #1 in Australia. I'm ranked #2 for our weight category, and I'm constantly hunting this guy, but he's an amazing athlete, and to be honest, it's an absolute privilege, and a lot of joy comes from being able to train with someone like Danny. And I guess together we do push each other a lot, and hopefully through this training we'll both be able to get to the elite level in a world sense. Good session tonight, this mob. Last one's to leave as usual, but yeah, good times. Yeah, definitely. Not only arm wrestling as a competitor, but arm wrestling in the media side of things is a big thing for me. I want to see arm wrestling make it as a sport. I want to see it in the headlines, and I want to see people everywhere recognize that arm wrestling is a professional sport. I know that still I think that the very, very vast majority of people, if you were to bump into someone on the street and ask them if they know of professional arm wrestling, they would look at you strangely and not think it exists. But I want to change that, and so I'm definitely on a mission in the media side of things to actually make something of it for real. The added bonus of all of that is the process of doing that is going to give me my own personal career. So allowing me to spend a full time dedicated to arm wrestling is a dream come true in a country like Australia, where the sport isn't yet recognised by our governments, and it isn't yet, there's no funding. Getting sponsorship is incredibly difficult. So for me to be able to put the structures in place that can give me a career and also help me to actually make the sport something is phenomenal. That blows my mind, and I know that the community really is critical for me in that. I know that the support of the arm wrestling community and the support of the fans that are coming to the sport, that means the world to me. Like, without them, I know that honestly there's no opportunity for me to achieve either of those goals. And so I'm forever grateful for everyone who's supporting the growth of what I'm trying to do, and particularly those from the beginning. I mean, there was a long time where I actually started this journey like at the same time that I started my arm wrestling. So 5.5 years ago, I decided I wanted to create a arm wrestling channel. I didn't know what to put on there. I wasn't qualified as an arm wrestler, and I certainly had no credibility to talk or anything. And fast forward, I've now got to the point where I've got John Brzenk as a co-host on the show, and that is amazing. I still have to pinch myself that, I mean, but a lot of people look at it and say there's a lot of luck in that, and a lot of people think, wow, Ryan is a particularly fortunate guy to get that opportunity. And look, on one hand I am, but on the other hand I know that for the last 5 years I've never stopped watering the ground of this dream and executing on putting out content. And there's been plenty of times where I've put out content that frankly was pretty rubbish, and people laughed at it, people mocked it. And I think the key was to take the same approach in the media side of things as it was for me in the arm wrestling side of things. It was rack up those losses, and for me a loss in this brand building media side of things is pretty much just putting out bad content. So every time I put out a bad piece of content that people don't like, that's another one crossed off the list. So who knows, there might be 200 bad videos before arm wrestling is recognized globally as a sport. And so that's my dream, and it's an absolute honor to work with people like John Brzenk. Like, he is obviously the greatest of all time. He is the most respected arm wrestler that has ever walked the planet and probably ever will. And working with John is a true honor, and I have a personal goal attached to John that I hope to be able to help him with, and that's for me that I believe John Brzenk deserves a back-end media career and an analyst career in this sport. If John was in any other sport and only half as dominant as he was, I believe he would have been given this natural career path to follow. So I want to return the favor to John and hopefully grow a brand big enough that gives him that career that he deserves as well, because at the end of the day, we all love and respect John Brzenk for what he's done for the sport already, and having his continued involvement in the sport would be amazing. So this is where the show happens, in my shed at home. I've got this studio. I have a pound for pound arm wrestling table put together for me by Brady Ellis, Combat Arm Sports. But I had a mate of mine help me out with a bunch of audio equipment. He steered me in the right direction and helped me get there. But it all started really basic, to be honest. It was all started with a camera and a camera on my phone, and it's evolved to the point where the YouTube earnings have paid for all these different things. But The studio, as you can see, is pretty basic. There's nothing special about it. I've got some curtains. Like I said, I'm literally in my shed, but it's a humble beginning, to be honest, but something that I really enjoyed doing. And as you can see there, that's where we are. We're in the shed here. But I really enjoyed the process of understanding that start point for the brand and the video and the arm wrestling show. It kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't know that's where it was going to end up, but it's kind of where it did. Hey, so it's 1 a.m. at the moment, and I'm about to do a podcast episode with John and Krasimir Kostadinov. The beauties of this show and the global nature of it. It's 1 a.m. for me right now, and it's 8 a.m. for John, and 6 p.m. for Krasimir Kostadinov in Bulgaria. So I'll take the short straw on this one, and yeah, this is what we do. This is what we do. But normally it's a lot better. Normally John and I are able to get a much more reasonable time. We normally work with sort of about 4 p.m. in the afternoon for John and 9 a.m. for me. But throwing anyone in Europe into the mix means I draw the short straw and do these episodes in the middle of the night. But anyway, time to set up. I think we should get Krasimir Kostadinov on the line.
All right, let's do it.
Hello. Hey, John. Hey, Krasi. How are you?
Hey,
I'm
Krasimir.
good.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show. We got the sound all sorted out. Well, welcome.
It's a pleasure for me.
Yeah, pleasure. All right, that's a wrap with Krasimir. Really happy with that episode. Can't wait to put it together. Basically, over the next few days, I'll get that edit done and send it out to the world. But yeah, awesome stuff. Time to get some sleep. Yeah, so five and a half years in the sport as a competitor, and the dream for me is bigger now than it was when I first started. When I first started, the dream was just to be a national champion, and that happened, and I've won plenty of national titles now. And then my next goal was to become world elite and be recognized as world elite. And I think I'm on the cusp of that, to be honest. I've had matches, obviously, with people like Justin Bishop, and I've had those opportunities. I went to WAF Worlds and experienced what some of the Eastern Europeans pull like as well. And I haven't got the wins over them yet, but I was always someone who put forward a goal that was far bigger than my current reputation. There was something I always strive to do, was keep my reality in my own physical ability ahead of my reputation. And I know that happened for me on the Australian scene. A lot of people didn't see me coming up as fast as I was, and a lot of people would say, no, you're never going to make it. You're not at that level yet. And sure enough, bang, I was. I feel like that's happening again on the international scene, and I've been brave with my goals in arm wrestling. Brave in the sense that I'm not scared like I was in tennis. I don't feel like it's a difficult process. I feel like getting to each of these goals is an inevitable thing with this approach. I love the process and the journey. I love training. I love studying the sport. I love refining my movements, and to be honest, I honestly feel like it's just a matter of time, and I'll be there at that level. So the goal for me from here, the next stage of the goal, is to truly be recognized as world elite. And then the ultimate goal for me as an arm wrestler is to be recognized as one of the greatest of all time. So obviously, to do that, I'm going to need to win a lot of big major tournaments and big super matches. So that's the journey from here, where I'm looking to go. And the good thing is that I can do that through the brand that I'm building. So Arm Fights Unleashed, which is of course attached to Pound for Pound Arm Wrestling. That is kind of a super match series that I'm looking at bringing to the world. I want to travel around the world. I want to visit countries, host fight cards in those countries with a tournament attached to them, and the tournament will be the opportunity for me to identify the future people that are going to pull on the elite card. So in those opportunities, those Arm Fights Unleashed cards that will very soon be happening, I'll get the chance to pull against a lot of elites that truly already are there. So, like I said, you know that I'm not worried about losing, so I'll happily go and take losses to people like Prudnik and Gasparini and Todd Hutchings and all that sort of stuff, because the faster I get losses against them, the faster I'm able to hang with them and then eventually beat them. So, yeah. Yeah, this is the best sport on the planet. I think arm wrestling's amazing. It's accessible for everyone, from these young fellas all the way up to people on their deathbed are still able to arm wrestle. I have a dream of being 80 odd years old and still being able to beat all my grandchildren. So all my 30-year-old grandsons and granddaughters, I want to still be able to sit there at 80 odd, and I'll probably be in a king's move by then. There'll be too much shoulder pain and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's a fantastic sport, and I love it. You love arm wrestling? Show us your muscles? Ah, yeah, good stuff. Alright.